What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the pod. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler and can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Monday, September 15th. We'll start it off, as always, with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league. Kicking things off with the bad news, and actually it's good news today, as we had no significant IL placements to report. So we'll move on to our transactions, beginning with starting pitcher Yesavage, who was selected from the minors to make his MLB debut in Tampa Bay. And he did so well that we'll break down his MLB debut in depth later on in the podcast. Next, we have starting pitcher Joe Boyle, who was recalled from the minors to start versus the Blue Jays opposite Yesavage. And Boyle tossed 6 innings, allowing no earned runs while walking nobody, allowing 3 hits and striking out 5. He induced 11 whiffs with 29% CSW across 78 pitches. He looked really good, so I feel like the Rays will be inclined to keep him in the rotation or at least on the major league roster. And if so, he would get the Red Sox in his next turn through the rotation. Next, we've got third baseman Nolan Arenado, who is activated from the 10-day IL as expected. He missed some time with a shoulder strain and will return to being the Cardinals' everyday third baseman, which will force another Nolan Gorman, to the bench and send Jose Fermin to the minors. So Arenado back to being the Cardinals' everyday third baseman. Next, we have first baseman Bryce Eldridge, who was selected from the minors. He's the Giants' number 1 prospect, the number 13 prospect in baseball, and the number 1 first base prospect, all according to MLB Pipeline. Eldridge was the 16th overall pick in 2023 and has torn up AA and AAA this year, batting .260 with 25 homers and a 119 WRC plus. However, he has struggled with his strikeouts a little bit, punching out at a 30% clip. He does, however, have prodigious power, as Fangraphs gives him a 70 future game power and 80 future raw power, while MLB Pipeline gives him 70 power on the 40 to 80 grading scale. Eldridge started at DH in his debut, so we probably won't see a lot of time at first base, and that's because Rafael Devers will be finding most of his playing time at the cold corner. But Eldridge is likely to be limited in terms of his playing time because he'll probably be on the strong side of a platoon, splitting time with Wilmer Flores and occasionally Gerard Encarnacion. But Bryce Eldridge, one of the best power hitting prospects in baseball, is up for the Giants as they compete for a wild card spot. Next, we have a bunch of moves from the Marlins, starting with third baseman Connor Norby, who was activated from the 10-day IL after missing some time with a quad strain. I think he's going to be the everyday DH because third baseman Graham Pauley was also activated from the 10-day IL after missing a couple weeks with an oblique strain. He played the hot corner when Norby was previously on the IL, and Pauley is a superior fielder to Norby, so I would expect the Marlins to put Pauley at third and DH Norby if they want to win games. So the Marlins also had to make more room on the roster as they called up outfielder Dane Myers. They activated him from the 10-day IL after missing time with an oblique strain, and Myers could see a lot of time in right field like he did prior to his injury. In corresponding moves to make room for this trio of bats, Jack Winkler, Victor Mesa Jr., and Maximo Acosta were all optioned to the minors. Next, we have catcher Logan O'Hoppe, who was activated from the 7-day concussion IL. He'll return to being the Angels' everyday catcher, which will force Sebastian Rivero back to the bench. And in a corresponding move, the Angels designated for assignment catcher Chad Wallach. And lastly, starting pitcher Michael Soroka was activated from the 15-day IL after missing time with a shoulder strain almost immediately after being acquired at the trade deadline. Soroka, though, despite having started in every one of his appearances this season, will pitch out of the bullpen down the stretch for the Cubs. Ben Brown was optioned to the minors in a corresponding move. Now we can take a look at some of our news, starting with catcher Dalton Rushing, who's expected to be activated from the 10-day IL today. He has missed some time with a shin bone bruise, and Rushing will return to being the backup catcher for the Dodgers, supporting catcher Will Smith. Third baseman Jordan Westburg is also expected to be activated from the 10-day IL today. He's missed quite some time with an ankle sprain and should reclaim everyday third base duties for the Orioles, which is likely to displace Jeremiah Jackson, ultimately leading to less playing time for guys like Ryan Mountcastle and Kobe Mayo because they really have not hit well this season. Lastly, outfielder Yordan Alvarez appeared to step awkwardly on home plate as he was scoring a run and twisted his ankle pretty bad. Like the whole thing turned over, put all his weight on the ankle. It did not look good. And then Alvarez was seen in a boot with crutches after the game and avoided talking to media because he wanted to determine the injury and the severity of the injury. So ultimately, not looking good for Yordan Alvarez right now. Now we can take a look at our notable performances from Monday, a day in which we had just 9 games on our slate. We'll start it off with our hitters, leading off with outfielder Dalen Lyle, who did all he could, but the Nationals lost to the Braves. Lyle went 2 for 3 with a run, a home run, an RBI, and a walk for good measure. It was his 6th homer of the year, and it traveled 382 feet at 107 miles per hour. A relatively underhyped prospect, the 22-year-old Lyle has burst onto the scene for the Nationals, displaying power, speed, and contact ability that should make him an oft-discussed player this offseason. The left-handed hitter has combined his 6 homers with 8 steals and a 292 average in just 80 games on the season, and has increased his fantasy rostership massively recently with a hot second half that has him batting 329 with a WRC plus north of 150, and it's a continuation of Lyle's success that he had in the minors, where he batted 328 with a 144 WRC plus between AA and AAA. And despite this extended streak of success in 2025 for Lyle, I'm not fully convinced he can keep this up the rest of the season, let alone next year. Lyle doesn't hit the ball particularly hard, exhibiting a 4% barrel rate without reaching the all-important 111 mile per hour max exit velocity, currently at 109 max EV. And if you reach that 111, you're pretty much guaranteed a future 800 OPS season. So not too much faith that Lyle's power is going to translate to the majors. But what he has proven, though, is that he's got above average contact ability with a 91% zone contact rate and an 8% swinging strike rate. Lyle is certainly elite at making contact. And I guess I'm just not sold on the power, and the speed doesn't seem to be game changing. I think a good comp for Dalen Lyle at his peak would be the Brewers' Sal Frelick, who has batted 295 with 10 homers and 19 steals in 132 games this year. Next, we've got third baseman Josh Young, who helped the Rangers, or who did all he could, but the Rangers lost in Houston. Battle of 2 Texas teams there. Young went 2 for 4 with a run, a home run, and 2 runs batted in. It was his 14th homer of the year, and it traveled 352 feet at 99 miles per hour. And it's been a rocky comeback from an injury-plagued 2025 for Young. He basically opened the season on the IL this year and looked fine after returning before hitting a major swoon in May and June, batting just .213 with 6 homers and a 67 WRC plus. Young's performance was so detrimental that the Rangers sent him to the minors for 3 weeks, where he continued to struggle with a 62 WRC plus, but then got a call up in the second half. And since his post-All-Star break promotion, Young's looked much more like himself, batting .275 with 6 homers and a WRC plus nearing 110. Ultimately, Young will have to figure out his aggressive approach at the plate. Like ultimately, I mean like in his career, because he does not make enough contact to make up for the amount of chases that he has. But I think you're fine to roll with him in the last couple of weeks of the season while he's wielding a hot stick. That's Josh Young. And if you'd like a breakdown of other notable hitting performances from Monday, check out the Daily Batters Box article over on PitcherList.com. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with the aforementioned Yesavage, who helped the Blue Jays to a win in Tampa Bay, tossing 5 innings, allowing 3 hits and 1 run while walking 2 and striking out 9. He induced 19 whiffs with 46% CSW across 69 pitches, and Yesavage earned the golden goal in his MLB debut as he led baseball with his 19 whiffs to earn the Gallows Pole, and then earned the King Cole by leading baseball with his 46% CSW. He also set a Blue Jays franchise record for strikeouts in an MLB debut with the 9 he recorded on Monday. Incredible debut from Yesavage. He is the Blue Jays' #1 prospect, so definitely had some hype to live up to. According to MLB Pipeline, he's the number 25 prospect in baseball and the number 3 right-handed pitching prospect. Yesavage was the 20th overall pick in 2024, so this is his first professional season. Therefore, he climbed all the way through the minors, all the way up to the majors. Starting at A ball, he went to high A, double A, and triple A as well, pitching to a 3.12 ERA, 0.97 whip, and a 41% strikeout rate. Incredible stuff from Yesavage. He didn't have incredible pitch grades, though, as Fangraphs gave him a 55 grade on his fastball and slider, while Pipeline gave him a 60 grade on his fastball, slider, and splitter. So above average, but nothing incredible. However, all three of those pitches were on display on Monday, and his heater lived up to the hype, sitting in the mid-90s with an elite 20 inches of IVB. The flat pitch induced 4 whiffs and 44% CSW, and paired beautifully with his wicked secondaries, most notably his splitter, which was unhittable, inducing a whopping 11 whiffs for 63% CSW as he kept it under the zone, while sliders returned 4 whiffs and 33% CSW. Yesavage's command was sort of all over the place, but he didn't have a problem getting strikes, and the raw stuff was obvious and definitely on display here. The Rays hitters looked absolutely lost against Yesavage, and I think he should be added everywhere at this point, and he's probably an auto start in Kansas City in his next outing. And lastly, Simeon Woods Richardson helped the Twins to a win against the Yankees, tossing 6 shutout innings, allowing just 2 hits and 3 walks, while striking out 11, inducing 16 whiffs with 37% CSW across 92 pitches. And that set a career high in strikeouts at 11 for Woods Richardson. And with his previous career high being 8, that proves just how out of character this outing was for Woods Richardson. He deployed his 3-pitch mix exceptionally, channeling his inner Trey Yesavage with a 4-seamer splitter and slider combination that all found success. The splitter was the star of the show, just as it was for Yesavage, and Woods Richardson must have had a great feel for the pitch because he's thrown it just 7% of the time on the season, but it was his most used offering on Monday, inducing 9 whiffs for 39% CSW as he displayed excellent command of the splitter downstairs, while 4-seamers stayed arm side for a trio of whiffs and 28% CSW, and sliders took care of righties handily, returning 4 whiffs and 44% CSW. We can't really expect this from Woods Richardson moving forward because he's never really proven to be a big strikeout arm, but it's nice to know that he does have this in his back pocket on a rainy day. Maybe increased usage of that splitter is the key that unlocks Richardson's upside, and hopefully we can see that next year, as he's always had potential. He was a top prospect in the minors throughout his time with the Blue Jays and the Twins, but Woods Richardson will get the Guardians in his next start. But if you'd like a breakdown of every single start from Monday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Brad Keller recorded his second save as he got the final out of the game after Porter Hodge worked into trouble. Dietrich Enns also got his second save, pitching 3 perfect innings for the Orioles. Brian Abreu pitched a scoreless 9th for his 6th save, and David Robertson got his first save with a hitless 10th. Yohan Duran pitched in that one, serving up a game-tying homer in the 9th to blow his 4th save, but he did end up earning his 7th win in the process. In terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or blow their saves, Pete Fairbanks pitched a perfect 9th in a tie game that the Rays would lose in 11. On the opposite side of that one, Jeff Hoffman pitched a hitless 9th in a tie game, but the Blue Jays obviously won that one in 11 innings. Emilio Pagan pitched a scoreless 9th up by 5 after the Reds put up 4 insurance runs in the top half. Pagan also hadn't pitched since last Tuesday, so this was clearly a maintenance outing despite there being a save opportunity basically right before he came in. And lastly, Tanner Scott pitched a perfect 9th down by 1 that the Dodgers would go on to lose that game in 10 innings. But if you'd like more information on relief pitchers, check out Rick Graham's weekly articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before I look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now we'll look forward to Tuesday, September 16th, a day in which we'll have a packed slate of 16 games as the Braves and Nationals partake in a doubleheader beginning at 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time. My matchup of the day is Paul Skeens versus Cade Horton. That was my matchup of the day yesterday, but both pitchers got moved out a day, so I'll put them again here, and then I'll give you a bonus one as we'll see Shohei Ohtani square off against Christopher Sanchez. Both of these starts. Both of these matchups should be a blast to watch, especially Dodgers, Phillies. Phillies just clinched the division, but they will not stop there. They will continue to push for the best record in the National League. In terms of probable starters, we've got 11 guys in the auto starts tier, including Skeens, Horton, Ohtani, and Sanchez. We've also got Logan Gilbert in Kansas City, Chris Sale in Washington, in our nation's capital, and Freddie Peralta versus the Angels. Our probably starts tier has 8 guys, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in Michael McGreevy versus the Reds. He's been very solid this year, not a big strikeout upside. Almost sneezed. Spoke too soon. But Michael McGreevy is very solid and is getting the Reds carpet, which you get the Reds outside of Great American Ballpark, and they're a pretty wimpy lineup. So McGreevy should be able to take advantage of them there. I'd also keep an eye out for Connolly early versus the A's. He looked incredible in his MLB debut. As good as Yesavage looked early, looked that good as well. So he should be started against the A's in his second start. And I also like Joey Cantillo in Detroit. He's looked great since returning from the minor leagues. He's got a great changeup and is a southpaw and should be able to take down the Tigers on Tuesday. In terms of hitter suggestions, I target Braves and Nationals hitters in their doubleheader in Nationals Park. We'll see Dane Dunning in a 6.86 ERA square off against Jake Irvin and his 5.70 ERA in the first half of that doubleheader. And then in the second half, we'll see Chris Sale square off against Mackenzie Gore. And I'd be targeting Josh Bell specifically versus Sale, as he's batted 300 with a homer and a 1064 OPS and 10 at-bats against Sale. That's Josh Bell. I'd also target Rob Refsnyder versus Jeffrey Springs in Fenway Park. Refsnyder has batted 375 with 2 homers and a 1500 OPS and 8 at-bats against Springs, and has a 161 WRC plus versus lefties on the season. I'd also take a look at Eugenio Suarez versus Michael Wacha in Kauffman Stadium. Suarez has batted 447 with 2 homers and an 1184 OPS and 38 at-bats against Michael Wacha. A lot of success there and a large sample success for Suarez versus Wacha. I'd also target Nolan Arenado versus Andrew Abbott in Busch Stadium. Arenado has batted 444 with a pair of homers and a 1252 OPS in 18 at-bats against Abbott. And lastly, pretty obvious, Marlins and Rockies hitters in Coors Field. We'll see Auri Perez square off against Kyle Freeland. And now we'll close things out with our relievers to watch. And it looks like every single closer should be available on Tuesday. So just set out your lineup as usual. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler. Tune in live on YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast. And make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.